Hello everyone, welcome to Professor Academy's UGC Net Sociology YouTube live sessions. So as you know, Professor Academy is providing few classes as free YouTube live sessions. So these are like an introductory class to our actual UGC Net Sociology course. And if you are finding these classes useful, you can join Professor Academy's UGC Net Sociology course. The admissions are open now. And I will be providing more details about our admission in the last of our class. So now let's start our class. So we have been discussing our unit 3 of the syllabus, which is basic concepts and institutions, and we have already completed 2 parts of this unit. Today also we will be discussing about major sociological concepts, which is discussed in this unit. And these classes are mainly focused on it or mainly based on an exam point of view. I have actually noted repeatedly asked points in the previous year questions, and we will be discussing those repeatedly asked concepts in this class. So let's start now. Our first concept is diaspora. So what is a diaspora? So a diaspora is a large group of people who may share a national or regional origin, but for a variety of reasons living outside of this homeland. So a diaspora means it is a large group of people who may share a national or regional origin. People who have a common origin. It can be a national origin or it can be a regional origin. But due to various reasons, this group of people are living outside of their homeland. For example, we can take Indians. So those Indians who are living in other countries, like people who went to other countries for studies, or we can say for seeking job, or due to so many other reasons. So that people who live in other countries, or those people of Indian origin who lives in other countries is known as, or another countries is known as Indian diaspora. So like that, we can take people from any nations or any regions. So diaspora basically means it is a group of people who have a common national or regional origin, but due to different reasons, they are now living outside of their homeland. So that group is known as diaspora. So this term diaspora actually initially used to describe the migration of Jewish people after the fall of Jerusalem in the 6th century BCE. So the term diaspora first used to describe the migration of Jews after the fall of Jerusalem. But since then, this term has been used to describe other instances of mass migration or forced relocation. Is it clear? Even though the term originated in that particular aspect, since then it has been used to describe other instances of migration or forced relocation also. And these diasporas or those group of people have a strong social and cultural ties to their homeland, but may also have multiple cultural identities. So these people who are living in another countries or in another faraway places, they all often have a strong social and cultural ties to their homeland. And but then they also have multiple cultural identities. Since they are living in some other place or in some other society, they at the same time they will have a strong strong feeling towards their own homeland, but at the same time they have multiple cultural identities, maybe the cultural identity of the place which they are currently residing. So this people or population of diasporas tend to have multiple cultural identities. And examples for diaspora, we can say there is Indian diaspora, which means Indians who lives in, or people of Indian origin who lives in other countries or other regions. They are known as Indian diaspora. Like that, we have Jewish diaspora, African diaspora, Irish diaspora, etc. So this is the concept of diaspora. Then there are several types of diaspora, isn't it? So, and this classification of diaspora is usually based on the reasons for leaving the diasporic population's homeland. Or we can say we can identify different types of diasporas based on the reasons why they left their homeland. Okay, so the first type based on this classification is victim diaspora. First one is victim diaspora. And this victim diasporas are a result of the expulsion of a group from a region. A result of the expulsion of a group from a region. People who, left their country or left their region because of expulsion, because they got expelled from their own region. And the diaspora which forms as a result of this is known as victim diaspora. They are the victims of an expulsion from their own homeland. So that kind of diaspora is victim diaspora. Next is imperial or colonial diaspora. So these are a result of political expansion. Okay, like in order as a result of or as a part of imperial expansion or colonialization, people move to various part of countries and they settle down in whichever place they colonialized or they went to colonialize. And the diasporas which formed like that are known as imperial or colonial diaspora. Then another type is trade diaspora. And this diasporas developed as a result of business activities. And the another kind of diaspora is labor diaspora. And this formed as a result of global pursuit for work. We can say, for example, we can say people or Indians in Gulf countries, they all went to those Gulf countries seeking job or for pursuing work. So, as a result of this pursuit for work, there in Gulf countries, they developed a huge Indian diaspora. So, that kind of diasporas which formed as a result of pursuit for work is known as labor diaspora. So, these are the types of diaspora based on the reasons for leaving their homeland. They are victim diaspora, imperial or colonial diaspora, trade diaspora, and labor diaspora. Is it clear? And another major feature of this diasporas is that they frequently maintain strong cultural ties to their homeland and their community members. Even though they are living in some other country or some other place, they frequently maintain strong cultural ties to their homeland and their community members. Okay, it can be through various ways, like if we take other countries or foreign countries, we can say associations of various people like Indian Association, Malayali Association, Tamil Association, like that. We can find associations of various diasporas in foreign countries also. So by creating an association or group like that, they are actually trying to maintain their cultural ties, or they're trying to maintain a community feeling or communal feeling among themselves. And this diasporas frequently try to maintain their strong cultural ties, even though they are living in some other countries. Still, even if they are residing in other countries, they will still celebrate festivals which they used to celebrate back in their homeland, isn't it? So that through these ways, this diasporas always try to maintain their cultural ties and their community feeling, or try to maintain their community. And diasporas also participate and create ties within the overarching cultural group they find themselves in. But on the other hand, even though they try to maintain their own cultural, cultural ties and community and all, at the same time, they also became part, or they also participate in the happenings, or participate in the culture of the place which they are currently residing. Okay, so they also become a part of that society which they are currently living in. So this leads to a dual identity. On one hand, they still maintains their cultural ties or their roots. They try to always maintain strong relations with their roots and all, but at the same time they have to become a part of the current society which they are now living in. So this leads to a dual identity to these diasporas. They usually have a dual identity or two identities. One which of their own homeland, and the other one the society which they are currently living in. Then Global Diasporas, an Introduction by Robin Cohen. It is a famous book about diasporas written by Robin Cohen. Global Diasporas, an Introduction. So in this book, Robin Cohen defined common features of global diasporas. So these are the common features of global diasporas explained by Robin Cohen. First one is dispersal from an original homeland. Dispersal means leaving their original homeland, often traumatically, and this dispersion often happens traumatically to two or more foreign regions. So diasporas, first common feature is global diasporas. First common feature is that dispersal from an original homeland, often traumatically to two or more foreign regions. Then the second one, expansion from a homeland in search of work or in pursuit of trade or to further colonial ambitions. But this dispersion or leaving their own homeland not only happens because of force or traumatically, but some people also leave their homeland in search of work or in pursuit of trade or due to other reasons, like due to other further colonial ambitions. So these can also lead to the creation of diasporas. Next feature is a collective memory and myth about their homeland. A collective memory and myth about the homeland, including the location or history, suffering, and achievements of their homeland. So this memory and myth about their history, location, the sufferings they went through, and their achievements. So this diasporas always have a collective memory and myth about their homeland. Next feature is an idealization of the real or imagined ancestral home. They always idealize their ancestral home. It can be real or imagined, but because some of the second generations of diasporas who's living in other countries may not have actually seen their homeland or may not visited their homeland, but through the stories they heard from their parents or through the conversations they had with their parents or through their relations with their family back in the homeland, they also have an idealization of their ancestral home always in their mind. So this is another feature of global diasporas, an idealization of the real or imagined ancestral home, and also they have a collective commitment to its maintenance, restoration, safety, and prosperity, even to its creation. Next feature is a strong ethnic group consciousness sustained over a long time. A strong ethnic group consciousness sustained over a long time, and this group consciousness is based on a sense of distinctiveness, or it can be due to a common history or the transmission of a common cultural and religious heritage and the belief in a common faith. So due to all these reasons, they have a strong ethnic group consciousness which sustained over a long time. Then next is a troubled relationship with host societies. So this troubled relationship means a lack of acceptance or it also suggests a possibility that another calamity might befall the group. Like even if they are living in another society for a long time, they still face a lots of problems like adjusting with the culture, or they may face discriminations based on that, and also so there is a chance for a troubled relationship with the host societies. Next one is the frequent development of a return movement to the homeland. The frequent development of a return movement to the homeland. So even though they are living in another country for a long time, they always have a wish to, or most of them have a wish to come back to the come back to their homeland in someday. So a frequent development of a return movement to the homeland is also a feature of these global diasporas. Next one is a sense of empathy and co-responsibility with co-ethnic members in other countries of settlement. Not only within a single country, but this diasporas throughout have a sense of empathy or co-responsibility with the co-ethnic members who are also living in other parts of the world also. So towards the population of the diaspora which are living in other parts of the country, they also have a co-empathy and co-responsibility to each other. Then another feature is possibility of a distinctive, creative, enriching life in host countries with a tolerance for pluralism. So these are the major features of global diasporas described by Robin Cohen in his book Global Diasporas and Introduction. Then along with this, he also discussed about different types of global diasporas. So these are the 5 types of global diasporas explained by Robin Cohen in his book: victim diaspora, labor diaspora, imperial diaspora, trade diaspora, and deterritorialized diaspora or cultural diaspora. So these are the different types of global diasporas discussed by Robin Cohen. Okay, so now let's move to our next concept, which is values. So as I said earlier, this class may seem like a random class with discussing random topics, but actually I have noted all these concepts from the previous year questions. So all of these concepts which I have included in this class are repeatedly asked in the previous questions. Okay, so right now we are focusing on that, or we are focusing on the syllabus from an exam point of view. And so that is very much important. Even though our syllabus has 10 units and different subparts for that, they don't usually ask questions from all the part of the unit, or the questions are not equally distributed. We can expect more questions from some particular part of the syllabus. So if we focus on that particular parts more, we can score more. Okay, so that would be better instead of trying to study or trying to cover everything about the whole syllabus. Then it would be difficult for you to remember all those. But instead, if you focus on the topics which are important, and later on if we have time, we can discuss other topics also briefly. But now the most important thing for you to do is to focus on this syllabus from an exam point of view and try to study about the important topics first. Okay, so in this class also I have included topics which are very much important. So from diaspora, now we are moving to our next important concept, which is values. So what is values? A value or values refers to intangible qualities or beliefs accepted and endorsed by a given societies. So values are qualities or beliefs which are accepted and endorsed by a society. Okay. So 𝙐𝙗 defined values as a value is a belief that something is good and worthwhile. It defines what is worth having and worth striving. So this is the definition of values given by 𝙐𝙗. Then Peter Wohlsley defined values as values are general conceptions of the good, ideas about the kind of ends that people should pursue throughout their lives and throughout many activities in which they engage. So according to Peter Wohlsley, values are general conceptions of the good, which means values are something which the people or people of a society should pursue throughout their lives, throughout the activities which they engage. Is it clear? So this is the explanation of value given by Peter Wohlsley. So basically, these values are the ideas held by people that guide them towards desirable behavior. So the values are something which exists inside everyone, which guide them towards the desirable behavior or the behavior which the society considers as good. So these values can be called as a guiding principles for an individual. It act as something which guide people towards their desirable behavior. So we can call them as guiding principles for an individual. Okay, and these values are universal in nature. Sorry, just a second. Yeah, so these values are universal in nature because they are shared by all the individuals regardless of their nationality, religion, gender, culture, or history. So they have a universal nature. Then there are different types of values. Okay, based on different aspects, there are different types or classifications of values. First type is positive values and negative values. Positive values means, or positive values denotes values of desirable behavior. Okay, positive values denotes desirable behavior, but at the same time negative values denotes behavior which is not desirable to the society. Okay, so positive values means desirable behavior or accepted behavior in a society, but negative values means behaviors which are not desirable to the society. Then there is another type called dominant and variant values. So this dominant values are values which have bounded society sanction and cannot be violated by an individual. Okay, so individuals can never, or individuals cannot violate this dominant values because they are bounded by this sanction of society. Individuals cannot violate this dominant values. For example, non-violence in modern society. So in our society, if we do uh, something of violence, like violent behavior, if we go and attack someone in the society, or if we try to do something violently, we have to face, we will be arrested and put in jail, or we have to face the law. So non-violence is a very much value all of us should follow in our modern society. So we can say non-violence is a dominant value, and we cannot violate that. Okay, if we violate this, then we will get punished. So that kind of values which people cannot violate are known as dominant values. But then there are variant values. So these are values that an individual has choice to follow while being part of culture and society. So in case of this variant values, people get choice to either follow that or no, don't follow that. Okay, for example, choice of food. In our society, we have the choice, or we have the freedom to choose what to eat. We can be vegetarian or we can be non-vegetarian. So these kind of values are known as variant values. Okay, even though some cultures may asks us, or in some cultures there are some notion that don't eat some kind of food or anything, but people are not legally asked to do that. If we like to do that, we can do that. So that kind of values are known as variant values. In this case, individual has choice to follow this. Okay, but in dominant values, we don't have a choice, we should follow that. Next type is innate and acquired values. Innate values means something which is already there inside us, like values due to our genes and conscience. Values which develop due to our genes and conscience are known as innate values, but at the same time, acquired values are imparted by social institutions and influences. Or acquired values develop as a result of social institutions and or influences, but innate values are something which develops due to our genes and conscience. Then there is intrinsic and extrinsic values. Intrinsic values are a person's belief about the things that are good for oneself and the things that are good for everyone else. And one of the major feature of these intrinsic values are that they are independent, or they are free of external influence. intrinsic values. But when it comes to extrinsic values, these extrinsic values are dependent on outside stimuli, but intrinsic are free from external influence. And these intrinsic values are a person's belief about the things that are good for oneself and the things that are good for everyone else. They are personal belief or a person's own belief. But extrinsic values are something which is dependent on outside stimuli or influenced by external factors. Okay. So these are the different types of values. Then these are relational classification of values. So relationally, values are classified into three: moral values, rational values, and individual values. Moral values are standards of conduct followed by an individual to control over his or her impulses or desires. Okay. Moral values are standards of conduct, or we can say something which control our behavior or control the behavior of a person in order to control our impulses or desires. So moral values are something followed by an individual to control over their impulses or desires. For example, honesty, tolerance, truthfulness, sincerity, self-control, punctual, hardworking, sacrifice. So all these are examples for moral values. All these influence a person's desires or impulses or activities. So that kind of values are known as moral values. Next type is rational values. And these rational values include equality, liberty, justice, integrity, respect for others, secularism, socialism, democracy, social harmony. So these kind of values are known as rational values. Then there is another kind of value which is individual values. And these individual values include good manners and good conduct, patience, etiquette, extending help to others, self-discipline, etc. So these are the three relational classification of values: moral values, rational values, and individual values. Then our next concept, which is norms. So according to the definition of Oxford Dictionary of Sociology, a norm is a shared expectation of behavior that connotes what is considered culturally desirable and appropriate. So norms are a shared expectation of behavior, or norms are an expected behavior that connotes what is considered culturally desirable and appropriate. What is appropriate in a culture? So norms are a shared expectation of behavior which relates to what is appropriate in a culture. Then Haralambos defined norms as: a norm is a specific guide to action, acceptable and appropriate behavior in particular situation. So norms are a specific guide, or norms decides how to act in a particular situation in a particular society. So these are a specific guide to action which are acceptable and appropriate in a particular situation. So simply we can say norms are guidelines which direct our conduct in particular situation. Norms are like a guidelines which control our behavior in a particular situation. So they are like guidelines which control or decides our behavior in social situations. And these norms are somewhat similar to rules and regulations. But one difference is that rules are formal in nature. Okay, there are written rules or they are formal in nature. But when it comes to norms, they are not formal. Nobody somewhere written down these norms and all, but they are informal in nature, or maybe handed over from one generation to other generation in a society, but they are not formal like rules, but they are somewhat similar to rules and regulations. So this is the one difference between rules and norms. They lack the formal status of rules. Rules are formal, but norms are informal. Okay? And these norms specify how people should and should not behave in various situations. Okay? Norms specify how people should and should not behave in various situations. For example, these are examples for norms: laws, dress codes, rules of sports, games, etc. So all of these are examples of norms. And norms are established standard of behavior maintained in a society. And another important feature of norms is that norms are relative, which means they are not static. There are chances for them to change over time, or there are chances for them to change from one society to another society. Is it clear? Something which is considered as a norm in one society may not be a norm in other society. Okay, is that clear? So like that, norms are relative. They can change from time to time or from society to society. Is it clear? So these are different kind of norms. First one is prescriptive and proscriptive norms. Okay, prescriptive and proscriptive norms. So prescriptive norms are positive type of norms. Okay, these are positive type of norms, and they spells out forms of behavior which role players are expected to follow. So here role players means individuals in a society or social actors, people. So in prescriptive norms, they talk about, or prescriptive norms are about how an individual should behave in a society, or how individuals are expected to behave in a society. That is what prescriptive norms are. Then there is proscriptive norms. So proscriptive norms directs a role player or an individual to avoid or abstain from certain type of activity, which means proscriptive norms talks about, sorry, just a second. Sorry for the interruption. So we can continue now. So prescriptive norms are about, or prescriptive norms talks about how an individual should act in a social situation, or how individuals are expected to behave in a social situation. But proscriptive norms talks about how an individual should not behave in a society, or it talks about how to avoid, or what are the activities which people stay away from. What are the activities people should stay away from? So that kind of norms are known as proscriptive. So they are kind of opposites. Prescriptive norms talks about how a behavior should behave, or how a social actor should behave in some situation, and proscriptive talks about how they do not behave in a social situation. Next type is formal norms and informal norms. So formal norms are generally written down norms like laws, and they involve strict rules for punishment of violators. So formal norms are generally written down, and if someone don't follow these formal norms, they have to face punishments, or there are strict rules for punishment of violators, people who violate these norms. Then there are informal norms. Informal norms are generally understood but are not precisely recorded. Unlike formal norms, we said that formal norms are written down norms, but informal norms are not like that. They are not precisely recorded or written down somewhere, but they are generally understood norms. Like standard of proper dress. Like we have different kinds of standards of wearing dresses. Uh, we would never go to a death ceremony, or Yeah, like a death ceremony, like dress like going to a wedding. Or for a wedding, we would dress up like in a different way. But if it for a formal interview or something like that, we would different in a another kind of way. So like that, there are different standards for dressing to different occasions. But the standards of dressing has never mentioned anywhere or written down in any legal documents or anything like that, but we generally understood this through various social interactions of us or communicating with other people in our society. So that kind of norms which we generally understood but are not precisely recorded are known as informal norms. Okay, then these norms are also classified by their relative importance to society. And based on this relative importance to society, they are divided into three: mores, folkways, and customs. Okay, is this clear? Then, Kingsley Davis in 1960 proposed a list of social norms. They are folkways, mores, laws, which are customary and enacted laws, then institutions, custom, morality and religion, conventions and etiquette, and fashion and fad. So these are the list of social norms proposed by Kingsley Davis. Now, relation between norms and values. So norms specify how an individual ought to behave in consistency with values of a society. So norms talks about, or norms are about how, or norms are something which an individual has to follow in order to behave according to the values of a society. Is it clear? So values are like a general idea about what is desirable in a society or what is acceptable in a society. So values are a general idea, but these values do not specify how one should behave or how one should act in particular situations. But norms, on the other hand, norms specify how one should act in a particular situation. So that is the basic difference between values and norms. Values do not specify, or values do not talks about how one should act in society, but norms specify how one should act in a particular situation. And the norms are the means through which values are expressed in behavior, or norms are the methods through which one can live according to the values of the society. Is it clear? Now, values provide more general guidelines. Okay, but norms have specific guidelines. Values are more general in nature and they provide more general guidelines, but norms are specific in nature. Then, for example, paying respect to the elders. It is a social value, isn't it? It is a social value that we should pay respect to the elders. But in order to show that respect, or in order to pay respect to elders, there are different kind of socially accepted norms. Like in some societies, people show respect to elders by touching their feet. But in some societies, they shake hands, or we can say hello, or through hugging. So social norms are very specific according to each society. But social values are more general. Like paying respect to the elders are general to almost all kind of societies or all societies. But how we express that or how we do that is different from one society to another, isn't it? So that is the main difference between values and norms. Values only provide general guidelines, but norms are specific. So simply we can say that values are sets of beliefs an individual has to guide his behavior. The norms are the codes of conduct set by a society. So this is the very basic definition of values and norms. Okay. So to our next concept, which is, or next topic, which is William Graham Sumner. So he is the first one to write about the distinctions between different types of norms. So Sumner talked about or wrote about a difference between different types of norms. In his book, Folkways, a study of the sociological importance of usages, manners, customs, modes, and morals. So in this book, William Graham Sumner talked about the differences between different types of norms. So, according to him, he talked about folkways. So, according to him, these folkways are the right ways to meet various situations of our daily routine. Folkways are the right ways to meet or to achieve various situations in our daily routine or our daily life. Like folkways include rules of eating, drinking, meeting and departing, types of dressing, ceremonies and rituals for different situations, and the manners of life in institutional situations as family, school, market, etc. So, folkways talks about these kind of everyday situations in our daily life or daily routine. It talks about how we should do all this or do all these daily routines in a right way or the appropriate way. Okay. And on the violation of folkways, the order of the society is not endangered. It does not create any serious problem. So even though this folkways put forward some kind of rules or ways to follow, but people have a freedom to choose from this. Like even if someone violates any of these folkways, that not that much problem would happen in the society, or it does not create any serious problem in the society. Okay, people have a choice to either follow it or not follow it. Then he talked about another concept known as mores. So these mores are essential characteristics or customs and conventions of a society or community. You have to, look at that word, essential characteristics. So mores are important, but folkways are just some suggestions. Like folkways were like some suggestions to do our everyday routines, but mores are essential characteristics or customs or conventions of a society or community, and mores are stricter than folkways, and this mores structure the difference between right and wrong, or it put forward what is right and what is wrong in a society. And the violation of mores may lead to so many problems. So that is the difference between folkways, and the violation of mores would lead to many problems. Okay. Then another concept is taboos. So taboos denotes a very strong negative noun. Taboos means a very strong negative noun. It put forward the prohibition of certain behaviors. So taboos considers some kind of behaviors of human behaviors as prohibited, or like in our family marriage kinship, we will learn about incest taboo. So incest taboo is something which prohibits intimate relationship or sexual relationship between particular kind of family members or kins. So that is known as incest taboo. So like that, there are different kind of taboos in our society, and these taboos prohibit certain behavior within individuals. Okay, taboos are a very strong negative noun. Okay, so these are the three concepts put forward by William Graham Sumner in his book Folkways. Now to our next concept, which is our next book, The Social Structure of Values by Radhakamal Mukherjee. So about this book, Carl Manim remarked that prior to this book, or before the publishing of this book, there was no systematic work on the sociology of values. So, which basically means that this book of Radhakamal Mukherjee, which is The Social Structure of Values, can be considered as a first systematic work on the sociology of values. So, the book is about sociology of values. And in this book, Radhakamal Mukherjee interprets society as an organization and accumulation of values. Society is an organization and accumulation of values. And in this book, Radhakamal Mukherjee articulated a sociological theory of values and traced their social origin and evolution. Okay. So this book, he actually proposed a sociological theory of values and traced the social origin and evolution of values. And he underlined that values are essential features of the new outlook in sociology. And through this book, he aims to achieve universal values and the unlimited society of mankind and cosmos. So this was the book of Social Structure of Values by 𝙤𝙤𝙙𝙖𝙩 Mukherjee, and Karl Manning remarked this as the first systematic work on sociology of values. Is it clear? So try to remember the title and the author's name, okay? Social Structure of Values by 𝙤𝙤𝙙𝙖𝙩 Mukherjee. Next concept, now to our next concept, which is bureaucracy. So bureaucracy simply means any organization composed of multiple departments, each with policy and decision making authority. So that is the very basic or simple definition of bureaucracy. Any organization composed of multiple departments and each department with policy and decision making authority. And these are some of the essential characteristics of bureaucracy. First one is complex multi-level administrative hierarchy. In bureaucracy, there is an administrative hierarchy which is complex and multi-level. Then there will be departmental specialization, strict division of authority, and standard set of formal rules or operating procedures. So these are the essential characteristics of bureaucracy. Then Max Weber was the first person to formally study bureaucracy. And in his book, Economy and Society, which got published in 1921, he described about bureaucracy as a bureaucracy represented the most proficient form of organization due to its possession of specialized expertise, certainty, continuity, and unity of purpose. So in this book, Weber explained bureaucracy as the most proficient form of organization because it had specialized expertise, certainty, continuity, and unity of purpose. But even though he talked about bureaucracy as a proficient form of organization, he also later warned that uncontrolled bureaucracy could threaten individual freedom, leaving people trapped in an iron cage of impersonal, irrational, and inflexible rules. We already learned about this iron cage of rationality in our class about Weber. So I'm not going deep into that concept, but Weber also warned that uncontrolled bureaucracy can cause problems in our society. It can threaten individual freedom and it would leave people trapped in an iron cage of impersonal, irrational, and inflexible rules. Okay. So this is our next concept, which is power. So power is a key sociological concept with several meanings and considerable disagreements surrounding them. So different thinkers define power in a different way, and there is a disagreement considering the proper definition, or each of the thinkers approached power in different ways. So it is a sociological concept with several meanings. Lord Acton defined power as power tends to corrupt, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this is how Lord Acton defined power. Power tends to corrupt, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Then Weber's definition, how Max Weber defined power. So Weber defined it as the ability to control others, events, or resources to make happen what one wants to happen in spite of obstacles, resistance, or opposition. So according to Weber, power is the ability to control others, other events, or resources. And it is the ability to make happen what one wants to happen, irrespective of any obstacles, resistance, or oppositions. Okay? And he also talked about 3 types of authority from which power is derived. Power can be derived from these 3 types of authority. And they are traditional authority, charismatic authority, and legal or rational authority. So these are the 3 types of authority from which power can be derived. Now, next, Karl Marx's definition. So Marx used the concept of power in relation to social classes and social systems rather than individuals. So Marx tried to define power in relation to social classes and social systems. And he argued that power rests in a social class's position in the relations of production. So he tried to explain power also in relation with or according to the relations of production. So according to him, power rests in a social class's position in the relations of production. And he said that only one person or group at a time can have power, either the working class or the ruling class. Either the working class can have power or the ruling class. So according to him, only one person or one group at a time can have power. And in capitalism, the ruling class wield power over the working class, with the ruling class owning the means of production. So according to him, the group who own the means of production gets the power. So in capitalism, ruling class got the power over working class because they were, or the ruling class were owing the means of production. Is it clear? So this was Marx's definition. He tried to define the concept of power in relation to social classes or relations of production. Next definition is given by Parsons, Talcott Parsons. So according to Parsons' definition, power is not a matter of social coercion and domination. Instead, power flows from a social system's potential to coordinate human activity and resources to accomplish goals. So according to Parsons, power flows from a social system's potential to coordinate human activity and resources to accomplish goals. Okay. And Parsons' view of power is often called as variable sum approach. Okay. His view is known as variable sum approach because in his definition, power is not constant or fixed, but it is capable of increasing or decreasing. So his concept is known as variable sum approach. It is not constant. According to Parsons, power is not constant. It can increase or decrease. For example, we can say in democracies, voters can give power to a politician in one election, then take it away again in the next. So there are chances of power to increase and decrease with changing situation. So according to him, power is not constant. And Parsons also said that power resides in society as a whole, not with a single individual or small group of the powerful elite. So he approached power as something which resides in society as a whole, not with a single individual or small group of elite. Is it clear? Then, Michel Foucault's 3 types of power. So Foucault's analysis of power aims to uncover how power operates in various social contexts. And he identified 3 types of power, which are sovereign power, disciplinary power, and biopower. So sovereign power is the power which are the traditional political powers held by rulers. That is known as sovereign power, the traditional political power held by rulers. Then there is disciplinary powers. And this disciplinary power operates through institutions like schools and prisons which regulate individuals. So that kind of power is known as disciplinary power. Then there is biopower. And this power focuses on controlling populations through practices like public health and welfare, emphasizing on the management of life itself. So these are the 3 types of power by Michel Foucault: sovereign power, disciplinary power, and biopower. Next is dimensions of power by Stephen Hughes. Okay, Stephen Hughes proposed 3 dimensions of power. First one is the one-dimensional view of power. So under this one-dimensional view of power, power is the ability to get someone to do what you want. So under the one-dimensional view of power, it is the ability to get someone to do what you want. And in this one-dimensional view, power is active in direct observable conflicts. And the focus is on the behaviors people deploy in decision making when different parties or interests are in oppositions. So basically, in one-dimensional view, power is the ability to get someone to do what you want. Next type is the two-dimensional view of power. And this two-dimensional view of power consider how those with power suppress conflict, or how two-dimensional view of power is focused about how the people with power suppress conflict in the society, or they try to try to control the conflict in a society. That is what considered in two-dimensional view of power. And in this view, a group has power if it can limit the scope of what is debated, thereby confining decision making to issues they deem safe. So according to the two-dimensional view of power, we can say a group has power only if they can limit the scope of what is debated in the society, or only if they can control what is happening in the society. So then only we can say a group has power. Okay, and by controlling what is debated or what is discussed in the society, if someone has the power to control what is debated or what is discussed in the society, then they can control the decision making of the people, or they can manipulate the decision making of society according to their own will. So that kind of power is discussed in two-dimensional view of power. Next type is, and also in order to achieve this power, or the power to limit the scope of what is debated in society, people or parties may achieve this power through various means. So Luke has also described about the ways to achieve that kind of power in society through coercion, influence, authority, force, and manipulation. For example, coercion. So coercion is securing the compliance of others through threats of deprivation, securing the, or getting people's support or compliance through threat or threatening people. For example, an employer may say, do this or I will fire you. So in that situation, the employee is getting coerced to do that work. He or she don't have any other options. They are getting complied to do the work. So that kind of coerced to do the work. So that kind of way of getting power is known as coercion, securing the compliance of others through threats of deprivation. Next type is influence. So this influence is convincing others to comply through various means, influencing people to do something for us. So that kind of getting power is known as influence. Then there is authority. And in this method, others comply with you because they recognize your authority. For example, young children obeying their parents. Young children, tend to obey their parents. They have a feel that their parents have some kind of authority. So they tend to obey whatever their parents say to them. So that kind of, feeling, or that kind of way is getting power is known as authority. Then there is force. One can get power through force also. And in this way, someone can get the power by securing the complaints of others by stripping from them the choice of non-compliance. For example, the police may close off the road, forcing you to find another route through. So in such a condition, people have no other way, but they have to, find another route. They have no other choices. They are forced to find another route to home. So, and that kind of situation, people had no other choice, but they are forcefully, they are forced to follow some kind of power is known as force. Then there is another way, which is manipulation. And this manipulation is securing others' compliance without their awareness. Or manipulation is implementing power over other people without they being aware. For example, a company may withhold data about the negative side effects of its products so that you buy them. So that kind of action is Sorry, some network issue happened. Sorry for the disturbance. So we were talking about the three-dimensional view of power. So in three-dimensional view of power, power is something, or power is the ability of someone to avoid conflict in the society. So according to this three-dimensional view, those with power can shape people's perception of their situation, and they can influence how people think and understand the world. So in this three-dimensional view, or it is like a bigger view of power or bigger dimension of power. So according to this dimension, people with power can shape other people's perceptions of their situation, and they can influence how other people think and understand the world. That is the three-dimensional view of power. And thus, according to this view, people with power shape others' preferences to the point they comply because they are incapable of imagining an alternative, and they see compliance as natural. So this is the three-dimensional view of power. And the first and second dimensions of, in the first dimensional view and the second dimensional view, there exists a conflict of power between parties, isn't it? So in first dimension, the people with power resolve differences through open conflict. And in the second dimension, people with power try to resolve differences by suppressing the other side's ability or willingness to engage in a public battle. But when it comes to the third dimension, it considers the ability of those with power to avoid the need for conflict altogether. So this is the difference between first dimension, second dimension, and third dimension. Okay. So these are the three dimensions of power given by Stephen Lukes. Now, let's discuss some of the questions from the concepts which we discussed today. First one is, a diaspora which form as a result of the expulsion of a group from a region is known as victim diaspora. Okay, the victim diaspora forms as a result of the expulsion of a group from a region. Then next question, values due to our genes and conscience is known as innate values. Then next question, generally understood but not precisely recorded norms are known as informal norms. Informal norms are generally understood, but they are not precisely recorded somewhere. So like we discussed about dress code. So that kind of norms are known as informal norms. Next question is, what was Parsons' views on power popularly known as? It was known as variable sum approach, because according to Parsons, power is not constant. It may change over time to time and society to society. Okay, so Parsons' view of power is known as variable sum approach. Then, what are the three types of power identified by Foucault? Sovereign power, disciplinary power, and biopower. Then, last question, what are the idea of three dimensions of power is proposed by? Who proposed the idea of three dimensions of power? Stephen Lukes. Okay. So that's all for today. I hope it was a useful session.